So welcome everyone to the Parents Toolkit for building your resilience and self-compassion. Alice and I would like to thank you for being here on this gorgeous Sunday. I'm looking out the window and it feels so much like fall right now, and it's just spectacular out. So my name is Trina Hoadley, and I am an itinerant child and youth worker on the Behavior Regional Services team. And I'm joined today by Alice Rubin Vaughn, who is a psychologist also on the team with me.
Everyone, welcome.
So we would like to invite you to take a look at these memes and pick one, and you can use the chat as well if you want to pick one that sort of identifies or you really feel that symbolizes how you are feeling at this moment. The current moment today, number one is the look I give when I'm completely overwhelmed. Number two is this week has been such a long year. Number three is when you've had a rough day, but you're still trying to stay positive. It's great, I'm great, everything's just great. Number four is I still have no idea what I'm doing. Number five is I am living my best life and there's nothing you can do about it. Number six looks victorious. And number seven is awesome. So I just want you to take a moment to reflect on which one sort of stands out for you. And I won't be able to see the chat, but you are more than welcome, or you can unmute yourself and let us know.
I think I'm a mix between 1 and 4 sometimes.
Those are mine too as well.
I'm having a hard time deciding today. I'm not quite sure how I feel right now.
And Alice, can you see the chat?
I can, so I'm just...
Oh, okay.
Oh, we've got some twos, a 2 or a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people having a rough day or week or year. Moment, anyway.
Yeah. Can totally relate.
Yeah.
Okay. We are also now going to invite you just to kind of set the pace and the mood for what we are going to be speaking about today. We're going to do a 2-minute mindfulness activity. And please let me know if you cannot hear this. It's a short video. Just make sure it works.
I'm going to guide you through a very simple mindful breathing exercise. It's very useful when maybe we're getting a bit stressed, a bit anxious, finding ourselves worrying or panicking in the day. We need to just connect ourselves back to the here and now, ground ourselves in this moment. So I'm going to invite you to sit up straight, let your shoulders relax down naturally, and gently rest your hands in your lap. Let go of any tension in your arms, just relax them. And you can either close your eyes or focus with a soft gaze on something in the distance. Now start bringing awareness to your breathing. You're going to be breathing in and out to the count of 4. So to start, empty your lungs. Breathe out, out, out. Empty them. And now breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. And in. 2, 3, 4. And out. 2, 3, 4. And in. 2, 3, 4. And out. 2, 3, 4. Now let your breathing just return to its natural rhythm. When you're ready, open your eyes. Have a look around. Notice how you are here, right now, in this moment.
Thank you so much for joining us with that.
Thank you for all of you who have just joined. I just saw a number of people come.
Oops.
Some frequency.
Just saw a number of people who joined joined us just during that quick mindfulness activity. Just for those of you who are here now, my name is Alice. I'm a psychologist with the TDSB, and Trina is one of our wonderful child and youth workers on the Behavior Regional Services team that I'm on as well. So thank you for joining on this lovely Sunday. Sorry, Trina, I just couldn't tell if I didn't know if you could see that people were joining.
No, couldn't. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we are going to, what's happening? It won't let me move. Oh, there we go. Okay, so today's session goals, we're looking at defining resilience and self-compassion. We're also going to, together, we're going to explore how we show and express compassion towards ourselves, what that looks like. And we're also going to be sharing our thoughts, ideas, and strategies for building resiliency through the community and self-compassion techniques. So this is a nice little meme we saw. Or a visual representation of how some folks might be feeling during this continuation of COVID, where we've all started. So this is your brain. This is your brain on COVID. Any questions? Yes, we have lots of questions. So some of us are still feeling this. Some of us are still feeling, you know, there are very uncertain times, and we still have lots of questions about what things look like, when this is all going to end. So we would like to ask you to take a moment to ask yourself the following questions. So what am I grateful for today? Who am I checking in on and connecting with today? What expectations of normal am I going to let go of today? And how am I getting outside today? How am I moving my body today? And what beauty am I either creating, cultivating, or inviting in today?
Sorry, Trina, I think there's a bit of a lag. I'm not actually seeing the questions.
Oh.
That's so strange.
Oh no.
Huh.
Let me go back. Could you see this one?
I can see that one, yeah. But the next, oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jessica's saying that she thinks your mic may be picking up people talking through her speakers. It will be slightly delayed. Oh, weird.
Okay. So maybe, and you're muted, Alice?
No, I'm not muted.
Oh, okay. I wonder if you mute and just make sure everybody else is muted, then it might work. Let's try it. And then just, yeah, let's see if this works. So just talking about definition. So an outdated view of resilience, is that better?
No, you haven't changed slides.
Yeah, I think there is a delay because I am on the definitions.
Do you want me to try to share instead?
Yeah.
Stop sharing?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if that works. Sorry about that.
That's so strange. Okay, hold on.
I think it would be okay, Trina, whenever you're not talking, if you
Yeah.
mute. then we won't hear the feedback through how you're listening.
Perfect.
You're not on headphones, so
No.
just keep that up.
Awesome.
That.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Yep.
Let me try to scroll through. Oh, sorry, everyone. Okay, here we are.
Okay.
I think, was I doing this slide now?
I can do that one. So this is take 2.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So talking about definitions, let's see if this works. So the outdated view of resilience is being able to bounce back from difficult times, setbacks, and other significant challenges. So it includes being able to deal effectively with pressure and get through tough times with good outcomes. And now the updated view of resilience is the understanding of resilience being less about the individual and much more focused on community resilience and care of one another. And we will be talking a lot about self-compassion, and it involves treating yourselves as you would like to treat a friend.
Okay. So I love this graphic about stress. We all have the capacity to hold stress in a variety of different ways. We all have different tools, different tricks, different things that we use. And for some of us, this, big ball of stress is much larger than for others, and it might depend on the day too. The skills that we've developed to cope have been developed over a lifetime. But we can also develop new ones. And hopefully that's why you're all here today, to learn a little bit about resilience and self-compassion. Especially now, having come through the last 18 months and, still continuing the slog with COVID, we all have more stress. We're all holding more stress and carrying stress. And we need to be able to do that in a way that doesn't impact us, so that we can be our best selves for us and also for our kids. So it's really important that we recognize the importance that we find daily ways to release some of the stress. So to take some of, this big mound of stress, we need to find ways every day to kind of take some of it away so that the load isn't so heavy. Because otherwise it'll get heavier and heavier and heavier until we just can't keep pushing it. And that's really important for our emotional well-being, but also for our physical health too, because it's tied to how we feel and how our mind is doing and how our emotions are. So even though we might not feel the impact of stress in the moment, it can accumulate over time and really impact us. So, sorry, I'm having a hard time with this slide. There we go. We don't want it to turn into this. Are you guys seeing? Sorry, is there a delay for me too, or is it okay? It's okay. Yeah, good. We don't want it to turn into this. We don't want to be overrun by this mountain or this huge ball of stress that ends up just overwhelming us and taking charge, and hopefully, and we don't want it to flatten us, right? So, we all have these coping skills and ways that we manage. And with the pandemic, we need to focus on them even more than ever. We need to give ourselves a bit of a break wherever possible, whenever we can. And that's been harder because things have changed so much. And I don't know about you guys, but even now that things are opening up, I'm still finding it really hard to kind of access some of the things that I did before the pandemic, even if they are open now, even if, things, aren't quite the same as they were, say, 6 or 12 months ago. It's kind of hard to readjust to this new normal after such a long period of time. And it can be really overwhelming. I don't know if any of you are feeling this way either, but it's kind of overwhelming. I don't know, I did the city sign up for my kids to try to get them into an activity of some sort. And it's been a long time. And just the process of doing that is stressful. If any of you have been on the City of Toronto website before trying to sign up for things. And now my kids have their first class tomorrow night. It was the only way I could schedule it. And they both are going different places at like almost the same time. And so I'm like, why did I do this? What are we doing here? And so I feel like I want to get back to normal and I want my kids to have these opportunities, but it's really hard. And now it's feeling a little bit overwhelming because it's been a different pace for so long. So as happy as, I know many of us are that things are, getting back to some form of normal, that schools are open and, things have, gotten back a little bit to normal or some sort of normal, it can also be really overwhelming because life has been different and we'd gotten used to that. And now we have to get used to this. So again, it's just really important that as our stress builds and things, we're managing more, we don't let ourselves get too overwhelmed, and we make sure we're taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves the break that we need, so we don't get overloaded. This is a burnout cycle, and I bet all of us on this call who have kids have experienced this in some way or form at some point or are right now. But basically the idea is that if we aren't taking care of ourselves, we're going to lose our cool. And that doesn't feel good as a parent. And if that happens over and over and over again, it can be very overwhelming. We can get so exhausted and we can start to emotionally distance from our kids. And we start to feel like a bad parent or an ineffective parent. And those feelings can take a really big toll on your own mental health, let alone the relationship with your kids. And so it can start with this lack of self-care, because if we don't have, it's like that saying, I don't know if many of you have heard it, but you have to put your own oxygen mask on first if there's ever a problem in an airplane, because if you don't, you can't take care of the person beside you. And as a parent, I know this phrase. I've been talking to people about this phrase for, I don't know, a decade and a half, and still it's hard. Very, very hard to do. But it's so important because of this burnout cycle, and trying to prevent it as much as possible. We need to take care of ourselves. So just to speak about community resilience and care for a moment, because we can focus on taking care of ourselves, but can also feel like a lot of pressure. That's one more thing to add to our checklist of like, I don't know, 100 things to do every single day. Some of what resilience is actually about is about a community's ability to bounce back and how we care for each other in a community. And we've seen a lot of really amazing examples of this actually through the pandemic, people taking, care of their neighbors, taking care of the elderly people that they know, checking in on you if you're having to self-isolate with your kids or getting groceries for you. Like we've seen, or maybe you've done those things. We've seen a lot of really amazing acts of kindness and acts of community resilience where people are thinking of each other and building strong communities. And that can be just as powerful and important as what you actually are doing for yourself. In terms of, if we feel like we're surrounded by a community that cares and that's willing to kind of help us out when we need it, it makes a big difference. I remember one example of this for me was when I had my second child, and a friend just took my oldest daughter out, would every once in a while take my oldest child out. And it just gave me, I still had the baby, but it just gave me that break. And that is like such a beautiful act of community care. And in those moments, it was like a small thing, but like an hour, but it was huge. It made me feel so cared about and just gave me a little bit of extra energy to kind of make it through those tough days with a newborn. And it's a great way to kind of create connections. So we want you just to reflect for just a moment about ways that you connect with others, your sense of belonging. And it can be things you do, but it can also be ways that you kind of receive that sort of caring and community connection. So who's in your circle? Who's in your community? Are there ways that we create a sense of community in our lives? And it could even just be like the people who you chat with when you're dropping your kids off at their school or picking them up, or, it could be very small pieces of connection. And what are the small ways we connect that show we're part of something bigger than ourselves? So I want you just to take a moment to think about it. It could be faith-based communities, it could be your neighborhood, it could be family, recreation, school, friends, it could be a way that you reach out. Just think for a moment. And if you'd like, you're welcome to share in the chat ways that you kind of connect with your community, or ways that you feel connected and a sense of belonging, ways that you feel that kind of community care. Sorry, I don't know, Trina, if you can see the chat, if anyone has anything they wanted to share.
Yeah, so from Jessica, she said, I did that with my two. The first I never connect in a parent group, and the second time I made a point to go to the parent group, and the early years people made such a huge mental health difference. I connected with the local food bank when the pandemic started, and I met a lot of amazing people through that. That's fantastic. A very good example of community care and reaching out for support when needed.
Can I ask sometimes a difficult question? And I haven't met too much trouble with it, but what if when you're looking to connect with the community and do community things and things like that, but sometimes you get pushback? Like, you know how Twitter is like a danger zone. Why bother with Twitter, right? But that's a good way to connect sometimes. What do you do when you meet up with people who maybe want to make a point that you're wrong or something like that? Do you just walk away? Is that your good mental health? Draw a line? I don't know.
That's a really great question. I wonder if anyone else has any suggestions for Jessica about that, maybe that you could throw in the chat. I think you know yourself, and I think different people have different levels of tolerance for that sort of thing, especially online. And I think you kind of have to trust your gut. People connect in different ways. So for example, I can't tolerate social media, so I just don't engage in it. So I don't have great advice on that because it's not something I do, but I would suggest, knowing your boundaries and knowing what you're comfortable with. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, then walking away or disconnecting is a really great idea, because I do know, the impact of social media can be positive, very, very positive, but very negative too. And I think you need to protect yourself for sure. But does anyone else have any thoughts or suggestions?
So Alice, there is from Samir, said, weak people ravage and strong people forgive and intelligent people ignore. From, I'm guessing that's Albert Einstein? Albert Einstein. Thank you for that, Samir. And Jessica said that's a really nice statement.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Samir. Okay. Sorry, were you starting here, Trina? Or
yeah. Hopefully my mic is better. I made some changes behind the scenes, so I'm hoping it's better. Thank you, Jessica. It's better? Okay. So a quote we thought that was very fitting for today is, a moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. So that is from Christopher Germer. And I would just like to say, or ask, open it up if anybody would like to speak to that, if that speaks to anyone. Okay, just let it sit in for a moment. Okay. And maybe the next slide. I like that too. So when we're talking about self-compassion, it is really taking care of yourself and showing yourself the same love and compassion that you would show to someone else. So being gentle with yourself, you're doing the best you can. And that is something that I've heard so often through the entire pandemic, is we're all doing the best we can. And reminding yourself as well that, you know, when times are tough, as they have been for so many, you are doing the best you can. And also research shows that people with greater self-compassion tend to have less stress, anxiety, and depression. And from Kristen Neff, she says, with self-compassion, we give ourselves the same kindness and care that we would give to a good friend. And we will walk through a little activity in the next couple slides that just hits that home for us a little more. Oh. And also by Kristen Neff, she breaks it down into 3 different elements. So she breaks self-compassion down. So there's self-kindness, there's common humanity, and there's mindfulness. So when she speaks about self-kindness, she's talking about warm and understanding ourselves when we suffer, when we fail, when we feel inadequate, rather than ignoring the pain and I can't pronounce that word. Alice. Flagellating ourselves.
Flagellating?
There we go. I was close with self-criticism. So as a mom of 2, this is something that I have fallen into quite a bit, which has led to a lot of self-doubt, especially during this time. And I am working towards being a little more self-compassionate, especially in those times. So when she talks about common humanity, she's talking about recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy is part of the shared human experience. It's not just something we go through, something that we all go through, rather than being something that happens to me alone. And mindfulness is something we will talk a little bit about as well. And it's a non-judgmental, receptive mind state in which one observes thoughts and feelings as they are, like in the present moment, without trying to suppress them. We cannot ignore our pain, but we can feel compassionate, and we can't do that at the same time.
And I would just, sorry, I'll just jump in here for one quick sec. In terms of common humanity, it's also important to remember that we want, like, part of the reason why we've started talking a lot about self-compassion is that if we can be compassionate towards ourselves, our kids see that too. And we want our kids to be kind to themselves. There's nothing worse than seeing a child who is so hard on themselves. And if any of your kids are like that, it's difficult as parents to see, because you know, we know everybody makes mistakes, and we can be really kind and compassionate towards our kids as they struggle and they suffer, and if they feel like they've failed. And we don't want them beating up on themselves, but they need to see us also being kind and compassionate with ourselves too. And that's part of this common humanity. This is something we all struggle with, is a tendency to be really, some of us are quite cruel to ourselves when we are having a hard time. And we want to, you know, as much as we can, be good role models for our kids. And that's part of what this is about as well, because it's something we all experience.
And I was just going to add on to that, Alice, is forgiving ourselves, like normalizing that, you know, like we all make mistakes, completely normal, but just being able to forgive ourselves and move forward. Some things we came up with in terms of self-compassion tools. We talk about a self-kindness journal. So writing about things maybe that didn't go as well as you had hoped, but ways you were or might have been able to forgive yourselves for that. Talk about self-kindness list, brainstorming ways that you can show kindness to yourself. And
I don't know if anyone else can hear you, but I can't. Trina? Oh, uh-oh, I think she's frozen. That's not just me, right?
She is frozen.
Okay, thanks. Trina, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
And I'm forgiving myself for whatever is happening with my internet and my microphone. And I apologize for that, but it is out of my control. So I think I left off at the positive affirmations. So repeating statements that feel right to you. So when you're noticing that you're being self-critical and those thoughts are, invading your brain, you can start saying things like, I'm valuable, I'm capable, I'm a hard worker, I'm creative, I am loved, and I'm doing the best, and I am enough. So that is another statement that I've heard often is, I am enough, especially in those times where you just feel that you are constantly coming up a little short. I am enough, and I am doing the best I can. So be a friend to yourself. So like Alice was talking about, the things we would do for other people, it's time to do for ourselves as well, to sort of build that self-compassion and that self-love. And then loving kindness meditation, I think there's a slide in here that we're going to explore that a little bit further. And then bonus, so your kids will benefit from seeing you use those tools. And if you want, you can also try them as a family. So this is one of the activities we spoke about. So your good friend is experiencing some very difficult emotions, self-doubt, uncertainty, feelings of overwhelmed. We invite you to use the chat and, share some words, phrases, ideas that you can share with them to ease the feelings they're having. So we'll take a moment to reflect on that. And if you can put it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, I will mute myself so that other people can talk without the feedback. Yeah. I'm just reading one from Jessica. So I think I would say to them that I do not see the qualities that they are telling me. I would try to point out the positive things, and sometimes it's hard to find the positives when you're really feeling down. I know I always need someone to highlight them for me. Gladys says, I will let them know you are not alone. Be a little kind to yourself. You are doing great. I feel like you're speaking directly to me for my tech issues. Amanda says, I think the first thing is to acknowledge their feelings and not tell them they shouldn't feel that way. Tell them all the things that are good about them and why they are important to you. Yeah. And let's do something new together. Share your new ideas with us. Awesome. I would say that if you're doing your best already, the rest would work itself out. You all sound like such amazing friends. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. I really appreciate that. Those are really kind and thoughtful things. Oh, sometimes it's nice for someone to ask if they need an ear to me. Yeah, or if I need a solution. Yeah, that's an important one. Like, yeah, completely. So now we're going to flip it a bit. So these are all things we would tell someone who's experiencing a rough time. So on the next slide, or this one, so now you are the person. So you are experiencing some very difficult emotions, self-doubt, uncertainty, and feelings of overwhelm. So what words, phrases, ideas can you share with yourself to ease the feelings that you're having? And in this exercise, it's, you know, a lot of people have a harder time with this one, right? Because we're talking about thyself. We're talking about ourselves. And it's always easier to be kind to other people, but when it comes to ourselves, you know, sometimes we just can't find those words. And sometimes it's nice for someone to ask if they need, oh, sorry. So what is the hardest thing I can do right now that would help me? Sometimes I feel like everything is too much or so much to handle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're definitely not alone in that. Yeah, thank you for that. Should be the same as to a friend. You are so right. Yeah. But why is it so hard? Right? It should be. So I started saying to myself during the pandemic, I am enough, and taking things one step at a time. And that's such a good reminder.
And I think, you know, as Trina said, this is one of the most challenging things. And people spend, you know, there are long workshops, like, you know, 12 sessions of work just to try to approach this idea of self-compassion, especially if you're having a hard time. And especially if you have a tendency to be really hard on yourself, it takes a lot of work and a lot of practice just to try to shift it a teeny tiny bit. So this is kind of just an introduction. It is really hard work to do this practice of being kind to yourself as you would a friend, even a little bit, and much harder for some of us than for others. So that's another thing to just be gentle with yourself about. Like, these are wonderful ideas. And if you can take one small, tiny thing from today's workshop and try to, like, you know, enact it in your life, or even if it just kind of was interesting and felt like a good fit, then that's great. That's something, because these things are very hard. It's about the way our brains work. And so to actually shift the way we think can be it's quite a challenge. It's not impossible. Our brains are very flexible and always changing. And so, you know, it's something to keep thinking about, but not something to beat yourself up about if it's hard, because it's hard for a lot of us.
So Alice and I both had a good chuckle at this. So today I will live in the moment, unless the moment is unpleasant, in which case I will eat a cookie. I love routine until I'm bored. Then I love excitement until I'm overwhelmed. Then I love routine. So I'm sure if I asked if anybody could relate to this, I would see a lot of hands.
I gotta say too, I never, I was joking with my husband the other day. I was like, I would give anything. I used to sit there and beat up on myself. I wasn't doing enough for whatever reason. And then I told him, I was like, I would give anything just to be sitting down and watching boring TV like every day. Just, that's my goal. TV, doing nothing. It's like, and then I feel bad that I'm not doing enough again. So it's like always this cycle that never ends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great example, Jessica. Yeah. Yeah. It's how we're wired. It's how our brains work, to have us always striving forward, but it makes us very critical of what we do. our brains are very problem focused as opposed to noticing what we're already doing and how hard we're already working. One of the difficult things about being a human. Oops, sorry. So we're just going to chat a little bit about mindfulness because it can be one of the kind of foundations. It can be a bit of an easier first step than self-compassion. Self-compassion is very hard. And in order to have self-compassion, you do need mindfulness. And that's kind of like we talked about earlier, like training with sharing. It's about just being in the moment without judgment. And that part's really, really hard. It's really easy to have a thought come into our head and then to start, judging it and thinking about it or judging ourselves. But mindfulness is just about being in the present moment. And there are a lot of really wonderful ways that we can ground ourselves in the present moment that can help with stress reduction, anxiety, depression. There's been amazing research about the impact of mindfulness groups. And how they can actually be as helpful in some cases when done kind of really consistently. It can be as helpful as medication for treating anxiety and depression. It's an amazing, powerful tool that we can check out. So really, it's just about bringing our full attention to the moment, and the best way to do that is through the senses. So we've got, our sense of smell, sight, sound, touch, and taste. And through those senses, the only way we can sense things is in the present moment. That's why it's so very grounding. We cannot sense things in the past. We can't sense things in the future. The only way sensation works is in the present. So if we can bring our attention to the smell of baking cookies, well, I wish there were baking cookies in my house, but there aren't. Wishful thinking. Or the sights of, the leaves rustling in the trees, or the sound of the wind outside my window right now. That can be very grounding. So, and we can do it anywhere. We can do it while we're putting the kids to bed, mindfully eating or walking. One of my favorite things that I read in a book on mindful parenting was this idea that at the end of the day, because I don't know if any of you feel this way too, but sometimes the most peace I have in a day is once my kids are sleeping. But it's the idea of before you then go to bed, just take a second, go in and just stand and, maybe like, I don't know what you guys do, but like, I'll go and just check on the kids before I go to bed, and I'll maybe stroke their hair or something. And I just take a breath and I just, enjoy the calm, peaceful moment. And it was a suggestion I got from this book. And I swear it's like the main thing I picked up on this whole huge long book, but I just loved it because it was just about being in that one tiny little moment with my kid. They were asleep, but it was so lovely and peaceful. And it just brings me calm for just a second each evening. So mindfulness can be done anywhere in any way. It's just about grounding ourselves in the moment. There's lots and lots of mindfulness tools. And if you're interested, I would just encourage you to check them out. But one of the biggest, one of the core practices is just breathing. We bring our breath with us everywhere. So at any time during the day, we can pause and just take a moment to notice our breath. We don't even have to, like a lot of you have probably heard about deep breathing or certain types of breathing that can help reduce stress. And those are all great things, but we can just even notice our breath. And maybe it's fast and it's short because we're stressed or we're busy. Maybe it's calm because, we're sitting watching TV or whatever. But it's just about noticing your breath in that moment. It's something we take with us everywhere. Or it might feel really good to slow our breath down and take a few deep breaths. And that's great too. Movement is a wonderful mindfulness tool. And it can just be, being outside, moving and noticing our moving, noticing our feet as they fall on the pavement and how that feels. I sometimes really enjoy going for walks and just seeing what I can smell or hear, or, I love nature, and nature has actually been found. I'm sure you've heard about the studies, but there are, again, amazing studies about the power of nature and its ability to help soothe us and calm our anxiety. And we live in a big, busy city, so it doesn't have to be that we're driving 4 hours to get out into the middle of a forest. But we're also lucky that we live in a place that has, a number of different green spaces, or it could just be outside your building. but you can feel the sun beat down on you. You can hear, maybe you're hearing cars drive by too, but you can also maybe hear some rustling of trees, or you can smell the grass that's being cut. And that can be very powerful. Exercise is another one of these things that can be a very mindful thing. And it doesn't have to be yoga or something like that, although that's great too. But there's huge power in exercise. Again, it's been found to really help reduce stress and help us to feel better, reduce depression, stress, help with our wellness, physical and mental. And so it's something, if you're doing it, awesome. If you're not, that's okay too. There's lots of other things that I'm sure you are doing. This is not a list. This is not a to-do list. This is just things that you're probably already doing, at least one or two of them that help. And you might just, if you can, try to do a little bit more, or if you need it, just know that these are things that might help you. Gratitude practices. These are wonderful things that can be very helpful in grounding us in what's good. And this can be really great for kids too. So just reflecting, it can be once a day on one tiny thing that maybe you're grateful for. I talk to my daughter a lot about this because she tends to have she focuses on the negative, as many of us do. And so I pick her up from school and how's your day? Terrible. It was terrible. My day was bad. It was terrible. Like, your whole day was terrible. Man, that's brutal. But when I actually start talking to her about it, it was not the whole day. Most of us do not have terrible days every single day. And we can always find one tiny thing that we're grateful for. So sometimes that thing I'm grateful for is just that somebody was kind and opened a door for me when I was struggling, like carrying something into a school. Or, if I grab a coffee at lunch or something, and the person at Tim Hortons or wherever I am is kind to me. Like, those things that I find make a big impact on how I feel that day. And so it's about noticing them, because often they kind of pass by and we don't really reflect on those things the way that we do on the things that are hard about our day. So it's just about finding ways to notice the things that are good and that we can be grateful for. And again, that has been found to really help reduce stress and help with anxiety and depression. And it's great role modeling for kids to notice what's good and what they appreciate. 3 senses. So again, this is just the idea of kind of like taking a moment, if you're really struggling, to just pause and be like, okay, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What am I touching? And it's just, again, very grounding, and just gives you that moment to be in the present. That can help kind of break sometimes if we're being really self-critical or having a very hard time. It can just give us that tiny little break. And if it doesn't go well, don't be hard on yourself, because this is very, very hard to do, especially when we're having a hard time. I love the bell listening exercise. I often usually have a bell, but I don't seem to see one around here right now. But we do this in schools sometimes with kids, and they tend to really like it. You can bang on anything that makes a noise, basically. I'll do it sometimes with my kids when they're really going at it, just to kind of pause things for a second. So you can ding a bell or ding a pot or whatever, and have them like raise their hands, or you just notice, listen to the sound until it disappears. And it just, again, it's a break in the present moment. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with these apps, but don't worry, there's always an app for all of this stuff with lots of other ideas or different things that might be good for you. And again, if you don't have time, if this is not for you, if it doesn't fit for you, don't even that's fine. This is not a fit for everybody, and it's not a to-do list. These are just some ideas for things that you might find helpful and can be a really good starting point to develop compassion for yourself. So we kind of wanted to start wrapping up with this idea of, what am I letting go of? We all tend to get very overwhelmed. And like I mentioned earlier, like I feel like right now with things opening back up and lots of stuff coming back online, in some ways it's more overwhelming than a few months ago, because we're trying to now get back into the routine of juggling a lot. And so are our kids. So what's really important right now is just to stick to your values. So what is most important to you right now? and then decide what to hang on to. We do not need to do everything. We are not perfect. Our kids are not going to be perfect. Nobody is. We can't do everything. We try sometimes, but we can't. So if there's going to be anything that you hang on to, think about your values and stick to that. And flexibility is really a hallmark of resilience. As much as I want my kids to be in swimming lessons and skating lessons and everything else, I'll be honest with you, when I did the city sign up, I signed my daughter up for 4 different activities. Four. I don't have time to take her to all of them. But I did. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in that moment. I got all wrapped up in it, wanting her to do these things because I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if she did skating and swimming and martial arts? And then I realized, this is crazy. This is too much for her. I'm stressed out with the idea of it, had major buyer's remorse. And I was like, okay, no. So I called the city and I ended up canceling 3 of the things and I kept one. I feel like it's important for her to learn to swim. But, if I wasn't being flexible in that moment, and I'm really glad I was with things starting this week, I would have stuck with it and been like, no, I can make it work. I can do this, but I can't. I really can't. It's too much. And flexibility is really important. It's an important way of taking care of yourself and getting through the hard moments because we can't do everything, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And when you feel overwhelmed, try, if you can, to remind yourself to take things one day at a time or one moment at a time, as a friend would remind you, as some of you said earlier in the chat. Sorry, Trina, I feel like I've been talking a lot. Was this one yours or is this one mine too?
I think it was yours, but I can take it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So just some things we really want you to remember. So we're all in this together, except that life is different right now. And yes, it's very different, and we're getting through it, and we're getting through it together. Recognizing that different aspects of loss you have experienced, and that could be the loss of a loved one, that could be loss of a social situation, loss of job. There's so much. Loss of friendships as well. Expect less from yourself. We're all doing our best. And look for activities, some new and old. Maybe you picked up on some of, the ones Alice just mentioned, and, you might want to adopt that into your daily routine as well to help fulfill yourself. So focus on maintaining and strengthening important relationships in your lives, and continue slowly filling your bucket or your toolbox. And remember self-compassion. The same compassion you would show to others, remember, to work that in and show it to yourself as well. And a question to think about is there just one small thing you might want to take away from today's discussion that you might want to try?
Or is there one small thing that you're maybe already doing that you're proud of yourself about? And you could just reflect on that. Dr. Spock, I feel like this was not really our generation, but these are wise words. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. Go with your gut. Trust yourself. Nobody is a perfect parent. And this, we have all run a bit of a gauntlet over the last 18 months. It feels like longer, doesn't it? It's been a hard, and a lot of us struggle, even before the pandemic. And then it just added such a layer of challenge for so many people. And it's hard to feel like you're doing the right thing, but just know you're doing what's best for you. You're doing what's best for your family, whatever that is. And you need to trust yourself as much as you can. So we wanted to end with this quick activity. This is a loving kindness meditation. So this is kind of one of the core self-compassion practices, or one activity that can be really great. It tends to feel really strange at first, especially if you haven't done it before, but keep practicing and it will feel more natural. It's something you can do with your kids if you want. And you can kind of send this loving kindness to anyone. in the world. And often, just as kind of a little bit of a tip, it can be easier to send it outside yourself. It's hardest to send it to you. So what I want you to do is just take a moment, notice your breathing, focus on your breathing as it goes in, your breath as it goes in and out. And then I want you just to think about somebody who makes you smile. It can be anyone, it can be a friend, it can be a pet, it can be one of your kids, it can be a partner or a grandparent, anyone. And with warmth and kindness, I want you to say these words. And you can say them out loud, or you can just say them, think them in your head. But repeat after me. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. And take a couple more breaths, thinking about that person and the warmth that they kind of create in you. And then if you'd like, you can try this with yourself, thinking of yourself, or you can pick somebody else. It's up to you. So again, with warmth and kindness, I want you to repeat these words. May you be safe, or may I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. So that can be really hard, especially directing it towards yourself, but you can always practice thinking of others first. And in kind of formal practices, they'll often also have you think of like somebody who you don't feel warm towards. You can send this kind of loving kindness out into the world, to the environment. It could be towards, the earth, or it could be towards your enemy or somebody who you don't like, somebody who's giving you a hard time. That can be hard too. But the idea is, trying to send this loving kindness out into the world or directing it towards yourself can be a very powerful thing. Okay.
So I realize we are at our time, but we do have a couple resources we would love to share that you can access on the TDSB website. So we will go through these quickly. This here is a caregiver and parent lounge that members of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Committee have put together. So some of you might have seen this. It is on the TDSB site under Mental Health and Wellbeing, part of a toolkit. So if you see this, you will also see that any of the items in this space you can access for a virtual experience, let's say. So if you clicked on the coloring, the color pencils over here, it will take you to coloring pages that you can do online. So you can see it there, and you can click on one. And, the guitar, there's music, the weights, there's free exercise programs. So you can access those. And if you, the Dare tab, yeah, for sure. I love that one too. Gladys wrote that in the chat. So that you can access lots of cool activities you can do with your kids as well. Some mindfulness things, some self-compassion things, some calming activities, and some good music. And then on the next slide, and thank you for staying with us. On the next slide, we took a screenshot of where you could find it. So if you go on the tdsb.on.ca site, you can click on Mental Health and Wellbeing Caregiver Resources, and it will take you directly there. So you can access, there's a wealth of information, wealth of resources, and there's also stuff for kids as well that you can access. So the same virtual spaces also lay there. And that is it. That concludes our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and working through all of our tech issues and vocal issues and all that. We really, really appreciate it. Could think of no better way to spend our Sunday morning than with you folks.
If anyone has any questions, we can stay on for a little bit, or if anything you wanted to ask about or chat about. Otherwise, have a great Sunday.